You guys are in for a treat. Well, I'm in for the treat because I get to taste/drink the wines right now. But we're here with Cellar Mas Doix, with Valenti Llagostera from Cellar Mas Doix, which, quick little story here. To me, it's one of the most important producers to me personally that I've bumped into in the last 10, 15 years. It was, let's go back a little bit. The year was 2001. And it was at the Vinexpo wine show in Bordeaux.
That's right.
And at the time, I was there to taste, well, Bordeaux, right? You know, it was the 2000 vintage, very big deal in Bordeaux. So all the hype was there. But, you know, I had some time at the big wine show, so I wanted to go taste some other stuff. And being the wine geek that I am, one of the areas that really thrilled me, even back 12, 13, 15 years ago, were the wines of Priorat. This isolated area southwest of Barcelona, up in the hills, just this mad, crazy place to grow grapes and make wine. And there was a little Priorat section at Vinexpo. A few of the growers were there together. And I went up to this booth, Mas Doix, never heard of it before.
Yeah.
And to me, it was at the time, it was Mas Doix, right? Because I was American and I had no idea, you know, how to pronounce Catalan or anything like that. And I went and tasted through these wines. Well, at the time, it was just basically the Doix.
The Doix.
I think just the Doix.
Absolutely.
And wow, like I was stuck on that wine for the rest of the show. Even tasting through all the 2000 Bordeaux, even tasting through all these great wines over a 4 or 5 day period, I was still stuck on that wine. And I remember talking at the time, and you were saying, "Oh, we're talking to an importer, et cetera, et cetera."
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the deal was done with Eric Solomon, and as soon as I found out that Eric had the wines, it was on the phone, boom. And we were really fortunate. I was really fortunate to be able to sell the first vintage of Doix in the United States, and I think we pretty much sold every vintage since. And now Valenti's here with us today. And
Thanks.
I get to talk to you a little bit about a couple things here that I've always been curious about, Valenti. Thanks for coming. First of all, Mas Doix, what does it mean?
Mas Doix. Doix is a Catalan family name. It's our family name, Doix, okay? Then in Catalonia, Mas is the Catalan name for the house you have in the country. Then Mas Doix, it means the house in the country of the Doix family. Well, in the Priorat, the family has been there ever since. Let me put it this way. I mean, they have been there for the last, a number of generations, always dealing, let's say, with this, with the wine, with the vineyard, for a number of years. And the point is that before Phylloxera, they had already a number of very small plots, vineyards. Just to say, just two words, I mean, Priorat as such means the land of the prior. The prior was the big prior of a Carthusian monastery that was set up in the Priorat area in the 12th century. And those monks were already managing 3,000 hectares of what's today is the DO Priorat, Denominación de Origen de Priorat, 7 very small villages. Those villages were already dealing with vines and wine for the last 800 years. Poboleda is one of those, and my family within this very tiny village has been dealing with vineyards for that long period. The Phylloxera at the very end in 1895 completely erased all the vineyard at that moment, and almost 80% of population just left the Priorat, but my family remained. The family had very small plots of land, and they replanted with the American food coming from France at that moment. They replanted. They graft the autochthonous varieties of Garnacha and Carignan, and with those they replanted. Grapes at that moment were just being not sold, but given to the COP, the cooperative that all small towns at that moment create in all those small villages. People had no means just to elaborate at home, no money for barrels, no money for nothing. Then they create these COPs. Everybody was just bringing the grapes to the COP, and in the COP, there was done a very root, very strong wine that was sold on a bulk. Priorat wines normally they have always been very, very high in color, very high in degree, and people from other wine places in the world, let me put it this way, were just coming to buy the wine on a bulk just to increase the degree, because Priorat may give wines up to 16 and 17 degrees, and the color. Just to blend it with wines that were not as with the same sugar or with the same color.
Priorat was one of the secret weapons behind many great wines produced in the last 50, 60 years, although they can't prove it.
Well, there are no. I can tell you there are documents of a number of people coming from different countries to buy the Priorat wine on a bulk in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, up to the 70s. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then, as you may know, from the 80s on, this has been much more under control. But that was how the Priorat was alive. That's why, on the other reason, you don't file any Priorat bottle of the 60s or the 70s, because nobody was bottling at that time.
They literally didn't exist.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was just on a bulk wine. Just two very special wineries belonging to two big families were just bottling. But the point is that nobody knows exactly which were the varieties within. But broadly speaking, Priorat in bottle, it's at the very end of the 80s, beginnings of the 90s, really become a reality.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, we were just bringing the grapes to the cup. The cup was just selling the wine the way I explained, and it was then in 1998 that, looking at the most incredible grapes coming from these very old vineyards, the most ancient planted in 1902, 110 years ago, we just say, well, why not? We begin to re-elaborate. We begin to elaborate wines again as it was done before Phylloxera. And that's how we began. In 99 was our very first vintage with these very old vineyards and huge, incredible grapes. And well, to tell you the truth, the very first appearance outside was Vinexpo. We were in these big stands of Catalan wines in Vinexpo. And yes, we are really thankful to that moment, because it was a sort of a mouth by mouth spread. People was just coming to taste our Priorat, because at that moment it was really a very nice way to get into people, into different markets. From that point, a number of importers, and we have not come once again to Vinexpo. As a matter of fact, I mean, we are a very small winery, and we just from that point we began to be in a number of places.
Right.
And the States, in this sense, was for sure the very first place where we met people that really bet on these wines. Absolutely.